Most people think that improving their squat, bench and deadlift is just about lifting more weight and that nothing else matters. But a lot of the time the real issue and a true demonstration of strength development is how you're actually moving during the lift. In this video, I've been walked through some key components that we look for in squat, bench and deadlift, as well as other exercises, and how things like scapular control, thoracic extension, proper bracing all need to work together to allow you to become a better lifter.
Right, so in the squat, we want shoulders and shoulder blades back and down. So using the muscles between your shoulder blades and your lats to pull the shoulders back and down. And we want some thoracic extension, which is this. We're gonna counteract this position with our bracing. So we set a nice solid brace, which pulls this rib cage into a more neutral position so that we're not overarched and overextended. It's not that we're not looking for that tightness in the back. It's just we want to make sure the bracing brings us back to neutral. If we didn't have enough tightness in our back, but we did have a really strong brace, we'd be here, which is also not what we want. So we want both at the same time so they cancel each other out. Hips, we want to maintain good hip stability so that we just have the hip kind of coming up, flexing and extending. What we don't want to see is any adduction and internal rotation. On the flip side, we don't want kind of abduction and external rotation, so the knees coming out. Same idea. We kind of want both happening at the same time so that neither happens. Now, naturally, this is going to want to happen when we squat. So we're going to provide just enough resistance with the abductors and external rotators that it keeps our hips solid as we squat. And then the last thing we want, as well as knee extension and knee flexion, that's going to take care of itself. We don't really have to cue that other than actually bend your knees and let them go over your toes. The last part is ankle and feet. We want knees, again, going over the toes, so that's dorsiflexion. So we need to make sure we've got enough ankle mobility for that. And feet-wise, again, this ties into when we are pushing. We want to make sure the feet are stable. We're not losing our balance onto the outside of our feet or onto the inside of the feet either. So those are how the kind of key principles we talk about in our mobility work, stability work, and warm-up drills relate to the squat. For bench press, the upper back and shoulders are very similar, except this time we're going to want more thoracic extension, and we're going to hold that thoracic extension even while we brace. But because of the position we're going to be putting ourselves in on the bench, we're not going to have the rib cage come down. Instead, we want to have more thoracic extension than we would in the squat. Bracing, we still want to happen just to maintain rigidity through the torso. And then leg drive, again, we'll go in hip extension to provide leg drive and knee extension as well. So we're extending our legs while we're on the bench into the floor in order to provide leg drive, which is basically keeping us in a nice, tight, stable position. So in this scenario, what's going on in the upper back is the most important. Leg drive and bracing is tying everything in together to keep everything stable. Deadlifts. Deadlifts are a little bit different with the upper back because we're not looking for any scapular retraction. Instead, we're just looking for shoulders and shoulder blades down, which is going to make the arms nice and long. Obviously, this is easy to conceptualize when we're stood upright, shoulders down. The key is we want to get this action of armpit towards the hips when we're in this position. So when we say shoulders down, we mean shoulders down relative to our body this way, not shoulders down in space, which would be that way towards the floor. So that's shoulders and upper back in the deadlift. We are looking for just enough thoracic extension to not round. So again, in this scenario, we're using thoracic extension to maintain a neutral, rigid position in the torso, which is also going to tie in with our bracing, same as squat and bench. And then with the hips, again, very similar to squat, but just it's usually slightly easier with the deadlift because there's less range of motion. The things we want to watch for is, again, we don't want to see the knees collapsing in at the hips. We want to make sure we've got enough torque at the hips to keep in this position here where the knees are staying over the feet. This is true conventional and sumo, where I can't get into my proper sumo position because of my pants. I'm wearing my tight pants today. But basically, the knees are staying stacked over the ankles, over the feet throughout the entire range of motion. We're not having this happening, and we're not doing this weird bastardized, not sumo, not conventional hybrid that's become popular, that sucks. We're not doing that either. we're keeping the hips open and stable, and again, watching for making sure we're not losing pressure at the feet and ankles, that we get a nice solid push through the floor. Yeah, so with conventional, well, this goes for both as well. We want to make sure that we don't have all of our weight on the heels. We want to make full foot pressure between the toes and the heels. This is true for conventional. We don't want all of our pressure on the toes. We don't want all of our pressure on the heels. We want to find a nice balance with your midfoot. A lot of these we are going to improve either through warm-up drills that we can use to try and isolate those actions and muscle groups involved in those actions. So think like your band pull aparts, using light lat pull downs in your warm-ups, things like that, banded drills for your hips, all that kind of stuff. We're also strengthening these positions and these skills with accessory work. You know, we can use leg press and belt squats and stuff like that for our hips. We can use RDLs for improving our bracing for our deadlifts and squats. We can really focus on what our shoulder blades are doing and what positions we're getting into when we do our pull downs and our rows. Things like overhead pressing as well. This is another common one where we see a lot of overarching back unless we're doing it for a reason, like on log. We want to focus on a nice rigid lower body, glutes squeezed, braced hard, and in a nice position here. The only difference, we're not going to be squeezing the back like on a bench press. We're going to let our shoulder blades move. We want to try and address all of these things through the rest of our program and accessory work. So one thing we do want to watch for with overhead pressing is make sure we're not overextending up and essentially like shrugging up, exposing my midriff. We don't need the shoulders up by the ears. We just need to lock out in a strong position. With the shoulder blades on this, it is a little bit different and this is why some sort of overhead pressing can be a good idea if we do a lot of bench pressing, where we're constantly pinning our shoulder blades back and down. An overhead press of any description is going to allow the scapula to glide around the rib cage and go into that protraction upward rotation.
Pressing exercises will tie into your back exercises. You've already covered it a little bit.
Yeah.
But also that some people will do this.
Yeah. So this is why we want to be quite particular about what our shoulder blades are doing when we do our back work, so pulling work. So a really common one is people doing pull downs and ending up with the shoulders elevating and kind of going into that downward rotation and shoulder blades tilting off. And we end up in this position. We want to be quite particular when we do our pull downs that we either want to do them neutral and just drive down here, or add a little bit of thoracic extension and get full range of motion all the way down to the chest in order to help with back position in the bench press and the squat. Same thing with rows. We don't just want to think about pulling the hands towards the stomach and ending up in this position where the arm is just sort of rotating here. Instead, we want to think about pulling the shoulders and shoulder blades back, driving the elbows back. This will then bring the handle of the hands towards the body. But again, we're keeping the shoulders down and back. There may be a use case for doing a slightly more shruggy row if you are trying to build up your upper traps, but that's a topic for another time. But it is important to think not just, I need to move from point A to point B. It's more, how do I move from point A to point B? What joint actions are taking place? Can I see those taking place? Do I see other things I don't want to see taking place? Even things as simple as a tricep push down, a single arm tricep push down. The only thing we're looking for is elbow extension. We don't want to see shrugging and anything else. So we want to look for what do we want to see taking place from a joint perspective? What muscle group is responsible for that? Can we see anything that we don't want to see happening? How do we remove that? That's how we fix technique on a lot of accessory work.
If you found that useful and want to find out how to actually implement these movement patterns into your training, we periodically run a free trial to our online strength training membership, where we take people through the same teachings as we go through with our clients. So I'll link that below. And if you have any questions about your own lifting technique, feel free to comment below and we'll try and help the best we can.